Welcome to our world table, week 4. Illinois, what are we making, Matt?
We are going to be making Chicago deep dish pizzas, Chicago Style hot dogs, and pumpkin pie for dessert.
So just to let you know, we filmed this over a couple of days, so that's why some things will look a little different or be a little different. And but we're eating it all tonight, and we'll be showing that to you at the end of this video. And just please make sure and go to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check us out on different social medias, Our World Table. Alright, we're ready to get started. Enjoy!
Hello everybody, welcome back. I am super excited about this meal, and we're going to go ahead and jump right into our Chicago deep dish pizza. So I've already got my 3 1/4 cups of flour in there. I went ahead and added a 1/2 cup of yellow cornmeal, and then here I'm going to be adding our 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt and a tablespoon of granulated sugar, which we mix together. And obviously I didn't get all the moisture out of this container. Oops. Not a big deal, just scrape it out and it all goes in. So it'll work. And then there we added our 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, quick rise yeast. One interesting thing to note, right now I had a really tough time finding yeast, and luckily we ended up having some, so we are able to go ahead and make this meal. But if you don't have some, just wait, and hopefully soon our stores will be having it back in stock. Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to, just kind of mix up those dry ingredients just a little bit to get that yeast really well spread through there. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to, using a dough hook attachment on a standing mixer, we're going to go ahead and begin to mix the dry ingredients. And then as that's mixing, we're going to go ahead and add our wet ingredients. So we're going to start off here with a 1/4 cup of our melted unsalted butter. Okay. Now remember, this is a 1/4 cup. I know the recipe says a 1/2 cup, but you're going to have half of that for later on, and you'll see how we use that a little bit later. So that is a 1/4 cup of melted butter, but not too hot. And here we have our warm water, again, not too hot. Looking for something that's maybe warm to the touch. So if it feels hot to you, you probably got it too hot. You're going to kill your yeast, which will ruin your crust. So don't do that. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit. We're going to hurry along and just add water a little bit at a time, so that way it'll mix right. And then what you're looking for here is you're looking for an even consistency on your dough. So you'll be able to tell, and there you can see we've got something that looks like dough instead of, we don't have any flour along the sides. We don't have any other ingredients that are, hanging out on the sides of the bowl. So we're going to go ahead and lower that down. This is going to be a very sticky dough at this point. And just get that off of there. We are going to add a light coating of olive oil to the inside of a bowl, at least the part that's going to be touching the dough. And also we're going to lightly coat the dough itself in olive oil. And then we're just going to put it in the bowl. We're going to cover that with aluminum foil, and we're going to put it in a warm environment for 1 to 2 hours until it's doubled in size. And if you're looking to make this in the winter and you need an artificial warm environment, go ahead and turn your oven on warm. Turn it off when it heats up, and then you can put your dough in there, close the oven, and it will be warm for your time that you need to rise, which is a pretty cool trick. We didn't need that because it's summer right now, but in the winter we could definitely use that. So here you can see I've just added a little bit of flour to make the dough less sticky, and then here I am forming it into a ball, and then from there we're going to go ahead and coat it in that oil, and we're going to let it rise. Now, because my dough was very sticky, that's why I added that little bit of flour there at the end. So if you also have sticky dough, go ahead and add flour until it's something that you can work with. And on the other hand, if your dough is very tough and it feels a little bit like hard, or it's not that good kind of pliable doughy consistency, then you're going to want to go ahead and add a little bit of water until it becomes easier to work with. Again, it's the same both ways. So there we've added the oil to the bowl. We've coated the dough in oil. Here we're putting the aluminum foil over, and just go ahead and seal that up. And then we're going to go ahead and set it over here where it's warm. All right, so after we've let our dough sit, we're going to go ahead and pull it out, and on a lightly floured work area, we're going to go ahead and gently punch it down. You're wanting to remove all your air pockets. You want your crust to be pretty thick. And so just gently punch it down just a little bit, and then go ahead and pull it up. Form it back into a ball, and what you're going to do is you're going to roll it out into a fairly large rectangle. You're wanting about 15 inches by 12 inches. Okay, and so as you go ahead and get that rolled out, then you are going to take the rest of your butter, that other quarter cup. Okay, now you want this butter to be very soft because it's going to be really difficult to work with if your butter is too hard. So make sure that this butter has been sitting out in a warm environment so that it's easy to work with. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take a spatula, preferably a spatula. You could use a knife or a spoon or anything you want, really, that'll work for you. And you're going to spread it pretty evenly across the entire dough. Okay. Now it doesn't have to be, perfect, but just do your best to get it, in a fairly thick layer, covering the entire top surface of the dough here. And so, then after we have done that, then what we're going to do is we're going to take our dough, we're going to roll it up pretty tightly, and then we're going to cut it in half to form 2 balls of dough. Okay? Because this is actually going to make 2 crusts. So that's nice because this is delicious. So you'll be able to make 2 pizzas instead of just 1, because the dough is by far the most time-consuming and labor-intensive part of the entire process. So being able to get 2 for the price of 1 is definitely a benefit of this recipe. All right, so there you can see it's all rolled up. We're going to go ahead and cut it into 2, and then we're going to form those back into balls. And again, you're going to lightly grease them when you place them in the bowl, which again, you want to have lightly greased as well. And then from here, you can freeze them. If you want to just make them ahead of time, you could even make a bunch of these if you wanted to. And they will freeze for up to 2 months and be just fine. So there you have it. And if you do freeze them, you're going to want to allow it to thaw overnight. And then rise again for about an hour before you actually make the pizza. So there, we're covering it back up with the foil. And we went ahead and made this the day before, so we just went and put it in the refrigerator for the night, and then we're going to come back and make our pizzas. All right, and so here we are, back again the next day. What you're going to do is you're just going to take your dough, one of your balls of dough, and you're going to roll it out to approximately a 12-inch circle. Okay. Now, again, don't worry about it being perfect. It's not going to be, but just get as close as you can. Then you're going to take it and you're going to put it in a 2-inch pan, and make sure it is a cake pan. A pie pan won't work for this because the angle is going to be off on the sides. And then just like this, you're going to make sure that it's pretty tight against the sides because you don't want any air or any space between the crust and the pan. Now, one thing that I didn't do, which is actually very traditional, and I would definitely do it in the future if I was going to make this again, is you want to have a layer of oil in your cake pan. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to fry the edges of your crust, the outside edge of your crust, and it's going to make it way easier for you to get your crust out of the pan, because that was one thing that we struggled with when we actually pulled ours out. It doesn't come out of the pan very easily, and it's difficult to get out. So we went ahead and made both of our pizzas, and you'll get to see both of them being made. One of them has toppings, and the other one's just a cheese pizza. And you can add whatever toppings you want when you do yours. Traditionally, it's going to be pepperoni, sausage, maybe some peppers or some onions. And then what you're going to do here is you're going to, again, just put oil on the top edge of your crust. So that'll give it a nice golden brown look. And once again, you would want to do the edges of your cake pan as well, so the entire outside will have that nice kind of fried, crispy crunch that is really a well-known aspect of Chicago deep dish pizza. All right, now moving on to the sauce. This is a pretty simple, basic sauce, not a lot of work involved, and it's pretty quick. So you're going to take your 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter and you're going to melt that in a medium to large saucepan. You're going to want enough space in here to actually fit all your sauce. So we're adding our 1 small grated onion, about a 1/3 cup, but more or less not that big a deal. 3/4 teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon dried oregano, and a 1/2 teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes right here after the butter's melted. And you're going to want to let that cook down a little bit to really bring out the flavors in those spices and the onion. Okay, and so we're just going to let that cook for a minute. Now, Chicago deep dish pizza does not have a long involved history like our Chicago dog, which we're going to get to, at the end of this video. That was very cool history. And here we're adding our garlic, 3 cloves of minced garlic. We are adding a 1/4 teaspoon of sugar and 1 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. And then we're going to stir that and make sure that it's really consistently mixed together. And then we're just going to let that simmer for approximately 30 minutes. So you're going to take the heat down just so that it simmers, and you're going to let it go for 30 minutes. So you want it to reduce down to where you have about 2.5 cups of sauce. And this was very accurate. We had exactly as much sauce as we needed. We did not have any left over. So that's a pretty accurate measurement there. Now, like I said, this doesn't have a very long involved history. The pizza originated in Naples, Italy. They took the flatbread, which has a very long history, all the way back to the Roman Empire, and they would just put a few local toppings on here and there for the working class, in order to provide a really cheap, healthy meal for the working class. So then when Italians immigrated to the US, they brought that with them. Doing here is we used bacon as one of our toppings, so we're just taking a couple pieces of cooked bacon. You probably want to use more than this, and we're just crumbling it up. Now in 1943, a pair of Italian immigrants named Ike Sewell and Rick Riccardo opened a pizzeria, which they called Pizzeria Uno. And they decided to make a pizza that was going to be different, and they made the Chicago deep dish pizza, which still uses the same recipe they made then. That's it. That's the whole history of the Chicago deep dish pizza. They just came up with it kind of on their own. And it does have a reverse layer of toppings. So you got the cheese on the bottom, as you can see here. You're going to use 2 entire pounds of cheese per pizza, which is crazy, but it's good. Then you're going to put your toppings on top of that. And again, something I would change if I was going to make this again, you use a lot of toppings. So I would probably at least double the amount of toppings that I put on here. But you can see you do want a pretty substantial layer. It's not like a normal pizza that you're going to get, from your local pizzeria. You do want a pretty thick layer, because otherwise it's not really going to affect the flavor. You're not even going to hardly be able to taste it. So yeah, just to put whatever toppings you want. As you can see, we use bacon, pepperoni, and mushrooms. 3 things that I really like. And then from there, you are going to add your sauce. And as you can see here, you kind of want to get your sauce all the way over the top, because the goal of the sauce here, or the purpose of it, why we put it on top, or why it is put on top, is to protect the ingredients, because this takes a while to cook, much longer than a normal pizza. And so if you did not have the sauce on there, your toppings and your cheese would all burn. And so the sauce actually acts as a buffer and protects all your ingredients and lets them cook the right way. And man, does it make a really good, tasty pizza. So yeah, there you go. You can see the one with the toppings is finished, and we're just going to go ahead and spread this one out, and then we are going to, like I said, use up the entire thing of sauce. And yeah, again, because of the purpose of the sauce to protect all the ingredients underneath, you do want to have this pretty evenly spread out. You don't want to have any holes or areas where the heat can get through. And then you can add Parmesan on top, significant amount of Parmesan, and that's it. Now we're going to throw it in the oven. It's going in at 425 degrees for 20 to 28 minutes. Now after 15 minutes, you are going to want to put either a pie shield, which is what we use here, or you can take it out and put foil over the edges, over the crust, because otherwise your crust will probably burn. And that's it. And then after the 20 to 28 minutes is done, you're going to go ahead and take it out, let it cool for 10 minutes, and then you can pull it out, slice it, and enjoy. Here in just a minute, I'll take the pie shield off and you'll be able to see ours, which again was absolutely delicious.
We're going to go ahead and make our pumpkin pie. We need 1 1/4 cup flour, and we're just going to spoon it into the measuring cup to keep it kind of light and fluffy, and then just scrape it off with a knife instead of doing a packed cup. So we're just going to make sure we've got that. And then we need 3/4 teaspoon salt. And we're just going to go ahead and mix that together a little bit. Speed it up for ya. Now we are using 3 tablespoons of chilled butter and 6 tablespoons of chilled shortening, which I am using the butter flavored Crisco shortening. So this is kind of new. We did one pie with just shortening, we did one pie with just butter, and now we are using a mixture of the two for this crust. And I will say this is probably one of my favorite crusts of the pies that we've made so far. So I recommend this type. So we're just making it until it crumbles down into like little pea-sized crumbles. And then we'll add a 1/4 cup of ice water. Now I wanted to tell you a little bit about the history of pumpkins and pumpkin pie and why we chose this for Illinois. So few foods have a deeper claim to American roots than pumpkins. Oh, we have a surprise visitor. Early American settlers were known to make a pumpkin pie of sorts by hollowing out a pumpkin and filling it with milk and honey and spices, and then just baking it right into the fire. So when I say hollowed out, obviously, just like we would hollow out a pumpkin for making a jack-o'-lantern or something. So all that pumpkin-y goodness would still be in there, just without the seeds and all of that. Now we've got our dough just how we want it, just about. We just going to knead it a little bit, make sure that it's not sticky, that it's going to form well. So you can see it's still leaving a little bit of stickiness to the counter. But we're going to go ahead and just wrap this up in some cling wrap and put it in the fridge for at least an hour just to chill it. Now we've got our dough and it's been chilled. It's got kind of like a clay consistency, really nice. So we're just going to go ahead and roll it out. I'm using this nifty pie thing again that I don't know what it's called, but it does make rolling out a pie very nice. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the history of pumpkin pie. So pumpkins quickly became part of these English natives' lives. England has been making sweet and savory pies for generations, and so they quickly found ways to incorporate pumpkins into that pie making. So what does pumpkin pie have to do with Illinois? Well, I'm going to tell you. First of all, we're taking this crust and we're just going to flip it over onto our pie plate and gently work it down into the pie plate so that it's all even and there's no air bubbles along it. And then I'm going to try to crimp the edges. I am not anywhere near an expert at this. So just be gracious. We're just going to do our best to make a little fancy edge on our pie crust here. So, pumpkin pie, Illinois. In the late 1800s, actually, two brothers, the Libby brothers, and an associate by the name of McNeil, opened a meat canning company in Illinois, near Chicago. And in 1929, they actually introduced a line of canned pumpkins, and it just exploded. So nowadays, it's in Morton, Illinois, and the company is still there. This town is now referred to as the pumpkin capital of the world. About 85% of the consumed pumpkin in the United States comes from Illinois. So now you know. And now you can see my beautiful crimped edges. They are what they are. It is what it is. And Matt was definitely making fun of me, but I did my best. We're going to go ahead and do an egg wash before we pre-bake our pie crust. You do not have to do this. There are two main purposes for an egg wash. One is just for visual appearance. It just helps it to brown nicely and to look really yummy. It can also work as a glue to help pastry stick together, or even the filling to stick to the pastry. So, like I said, it's not completely necessary, but for this, we're going to do it. We're only doing the edges where we're not going to have the filling, just so that bakes really nicely to give the edges of the crust that really nice golden brown color. Then we're going to go ahead and bake this at about 375 for just about 10 minutes before we put the filling in it. We're ready for our pumpkin pie filling. Just a reminder, you can find the full written out recipe on our blog post at ourworldtable.com. It will be under Illinois. So we're using 15 ounces of pumpkin puree. Whoops. And we're just going to crack in 3 eggs. And then we're adding 1 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Make sure that that's well packed. And give that a good stir. Mix those eggs in. Yummy! We just want to make sure that that is mixed together well before we mix in these next ingredients. We have quite a few. So starting off, we have a tablespoon of cornstarch. This is a little bit thicker, so it takes a little bit to get it out of there. We need a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Next, we have 1 1/2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground cloves, and we have a few to go. All right, this is 1/2 teaspoon ground ginger. It smells really good. And then we need a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. I wanted to show you I use a whole nutmeg in this little tiny grater. It's so cute. And that just gives you some nice freshly grated nutmeg. You can get it just as ground nutmeg as well. We also need 1/8 teaspoon of black pepper, and then our cup of heavy cream. You'll need something to scrape that all out, and then a 1/4 cup of milk. Now, all of these spices is what really gives this pumpkin pie a nice rich flavor, rather than just using pumpkin pie spice, which you can do, but all of these fresh spices are really nice. So we're just mixing that with a whisk. This takes a while, so if you have someone else helping you and you can take turns whisking, that's probably a good idea. Just go back and forth. Otherwise, just use both hands, different techniques. It takes a long time because you're just really trying to get this to thicken up and be ready. It doesn't need to be too thick. It is going to thicken in the oven, so just do the best that you can. For one, I'm very glad that we no longer have to roast and strain our own pumpkin for making pumpkin pie. So here's our pie crust. It puffed up a bit in the center, but that's okay. The filling is going to press down on that, so it won't be an issue. But the edges are nice and browned. Obviously, they're going to get more browned when the pie's in there for the full amount of time, so we wouldn't want it to burn or anything like that. We have quite a bit of filling here, so we have some left over. We don't want to overfill the pie, so we're going to leave it at that, and we're going to put it in the oven for about an hour. I would check it after about 50 minutes. You're going to see in a second what it should look like. I did put a pie crust shield so the edges wouldn't burn. If you have one of those, I recommend it at least for the last half of the baking time. And you can see it's kind of puffs up and just looks really, really nice when it's done cooking. We decided to make our own whipped cream, and for best results, have a ice cold bowl. Now you can just put a bowl in the freezer, or like I did, I just put some ice water in the bowl. This metal bowl got very, very cold. Now we're going to add 2 cups of cold, heavy whipping cream. Here I have 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar, but I did add another 2 tablespoons as I was going along. I didn't think it was quite sweet enough. I like things very sweet though. And then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And if I were doing this again, I would use the standing mixer and just watch it closely. What you're watching for is kind of medium stiff peaks. As it was, I used this hand mixer, and it took a very long time. Now, in our recipe, we talked about using some sugared cranberries as a topping. We did not make those for this video. Not really a seasonal time to do it, but if you are, especially if you're making this for Thanksgiving or sometime in the fall, it's a really pretty and yummy way to decorate your pumpkin pie with those sugared cranberries. And the instructions are all on there if you want to do that. It does take a little bit of time and then about 2 hours for them to dry after you've made them. So just factor in that time. Maybe later on we will make those with another pumpkin pie so that you can see that. So we're just about done. Make sure to refrigerate any leftovers.
Hello, hello. I have just under 2 minutes to tell you the entire history of the Chicago hot dog, which is very long, so we're just going to jump right in. So the Germany, Austria, Poland region of the world is widely regarded as the sausage capital of the world, and so it should come as no surprise that the humble hot dog has its origins here as well. Now, hot dogs were first brought to the U.S. as a cased pork sausage sometime in the 1840s, with an influx of German immigrants who were escaping the German Revolution of the time. Now, sometime between here and the turn of the century, there was a second influx of immigrants, specifically Jewish immigrants, who brought with them kosher laws. Now, the kosher laws required beef, and they are quite restrictive, and so because of the low standards in the food processing industry at the time, all beef kosher dogs quickly became popular, and so they are used in the Chicago dog to this day, specifically the Vienna brand. Now, the second piece of the puzzle is in 1909, there was a man named Sam Rosen who moved from New York to Chicago. He opened a bakery and he began selling poppy seed buns. We were not able to find these. They are pretty much a regional thing, and so if you can find them, go ahead and use them in yours, but we didn't use them in ours. And then finally, the final piece of the puzzle was the Depression of the 1930s. So at this point, even the hot dog was too expensive for most people who were out of work, because it would take 3 or 4 hot dogs to fill up a single adult. And so what street vendors did was they started adding different vegetables in order to make a complete meal out of a hot dog. And so, they would try different things, and there was lots of different combinations at this time. But what eventually came out of it at the end of the Depression was what you know today as the Chicago Style Dog. And this is the story of the Chicago dog, why it's called a dog that's been dragged through the garden. And so in order to do that, what you do is you boil your hot dog, you steam your bun as you've just seen, and then you're going to add 1 strip of mustard, just like that. You're going to add your sweet pickle relish along the side of the dog, just like that. And then the next thing you are going to add is your diced onion. You are going to want to use white onion for this. It's got a distinct flavor that is going to really set off everything else, all the other ingredients here. Okay. Don't worry too much about getting everything perfect. That's not the idea behind a Chicago dog. You've got so much stuff in there that it's really, no matter how you do it, it's gonna look nice. And you're gonna add your tomato wedges. I don't know if there's a specific type of tomato that's used. I really don't think that there is. I think it's more just the moisture and just kind of the juiciness of a tomato that you're adding here, and also the flavor, obviously. And then you're going to take a dill spear, put it on the other side from the tomato, and finally your sport peppers. And sport peppers, again, are a regional thing. If you can't find these, you can either really substitute in pepperoncinis, which I think are very similar in taste, so you're not going to be missing too much. Finally, the last thing you're going to add is a dash of celery salt. And that will complete your Chicago-style dog. Look at that beautiful hot dog. With that, we're ready to enjoy this yummy and delicious meal.
We're sitting down to eat. Everything's ready. We'll check back with you afterwards and let you know how everything was.
I think it's spicy.
What?
Onion.
Oh, you already ate it?
Yep.
Nice.
Hey guys, we are finished with our Illinois meal. Number 1, the deep dish pizza was a huge hit. We all really liked it. We made one that was just all cheese and one that had some toppings on it. We tried both of them. They were really good. Even Hunter and Aiden loved it. Dean was the number 1 fan. He ate probably an entire piece and like half of mine, so he was loving it. And
It's
then,
very hefty.
yeah.
And then the Chicago Style hot dogs were very good. There's a lot on there, and it's definitely like an explosion of flavor in every bite. I mean, you're just going to get all these competing flavors, but it works out and it actually tastes really good. So if you're ever in Chicago, I recommend grabbing one.
The peppers are a little bit spicy, so I mean, you can use your judgment on that. But I was surprised because I didn't think that I would like it, and I would go without the peppers. But I actually really liked it. Other than that, it was definitely interesting. I didn't think I would, and I did. So that was kind of cool. Then we have some pumpkin pie with our homemade whipped cream. And I will also say I'm not a huge fan of pumpkin pie. I don't hate it, but it's not one of my favorite things. But I think this is really good.
It is quite good.
Pretty fun.
I love pumpkin pie, and I can definitely tell you this is definitely one of the better ones I've had. So, yep, very good.
And then next time we will be in Wisconsin.
Yep, next week we're going to be making beer brats with sauerkraut and fried onions, and we're going to be making fried cheese curds for the side dish, and a Kringle for dessert.
I've never had Kringles, so that will be interesting, huh? But I
Yep.
love beer brats and sauerkraut, so I'm very excited for that.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on any of your preferred social medias, and keep checking back on our website. We're updating it and updating the recipes and the menus for the next few weeks. So, and don't forget, we're doing a new video every other week. So just look for that and stay tuned.